Hey Andrew, this is Ethan Johnson out of Alabama in the United States, and I wanted to ask, after I followed your donut tutorial and a bunch of other tutorials on YouTube, and one paid intermediate tutorial, and I've also signed up for your This Week in 3D, and I've also started to sell some of my models. But I was wondering what you would suggest to do to keep learning after I've gone through a bunch of tutorials and even a paid tutorial. I think this could help a lot of other beginners to intermediates as well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good question, Ethan. You're a young fella looking to scale up in the world, get technically proficient. I don't know. No, it's good. Yeah, listen, Ethan. It does sound a little bit like what I was just talking about with the checkboxes, right? Approaching learning like I watched the donut tutorial, I've watched the intermediate tutorial, I've watched this, and it's obviously you don't want to go and redo the donut tutorial if you don't have to, but you have not necessarily aced each of those topics. You haven't aced modeling because you've made one coffee cup or you've made one donut or you've watched an intermediate course on whatever it was that you watched it on, how to make a rocket ship or something. I'm sure you've learned a lot. I don't mean to say this to dishearten you, but this is something I've learned myself as well. Is like, as humans, we want to feel like progress is made. And so we're checking off boxes and we go, yeah, I finished, I've done that. And then it's like, yes, I finished the lighting, I finished this, I've aced all of the components, right? Because you've checked the box, but it hasn't necessarily happened, okay? As I said before, you model one chair doesn't mean you know how to model all the chairs. Every chair is different and they all have their own challenges. So what I would say is you need to have a North Star, okay? You need to have something that you are aiming towards. So it's likely the thing that got you into 3D in the first place, right? So maybe you want to make a video game, or you want to make a character, or you want to make a VFX shot, ArchViz, or maybe you just want to get rich like Beeple and make the kind of work that he does, okay? That's your North Star, okay? So you should try to do that. If you're not sure what to focus on next, try to do the thing that you want to do, okay? And that's like, whoa, I'm not ready for that. And it's like, okay, but why? That's what you need to focus on, okay? So maybe you give it a shot, okay? Maybe you try to make a, finished, image like Beeple with an environment and, crazy sci-fi stuff or whatever, make one of those things. It's likely by the end of it, you will have already noticed some areas that you struggle with. But also, once you finish at the end of it, you've got a finished piece. You can pause and reflect. So I mentioned this at the end of my forest cabin in the woods tutorial. But at the end of a project, it's good to do a post-mortem where you open up a notepad file and you look back on the project that you just did and write down what it is that you could do better next time. What went wrong? What was more challenging? What was areas that didn't work out as well as you had hoped? And just write it out. It only takes 10 minutes, but it'll save you so much in the future for your next project, right? So that usually, I definitely recommend leaving a gap between when you finish the artwork and doing the post-mortem. It'll refresh your eyes, you can do something else, and then you look at it and you'll be like, oh, actually, that's got a lot of problems that I didn't see at first. So doing that will definitely help. And if you still don't know, like, what are my areas of weakness, show it to someone who is experienced. Try to join any Facebook group that offers critiques, or message boards or wherever it is that you can get feedback, and ask. I'm open to honest feedback. You can't hurt my feelings. Please be honest. What's wrong with this image? And people will tell you once you say that. And then those are your areas to focus on. So you should then have a list of areas to focus on. Maybe it's like organic modeling, or maybe it's sculpting, or you didn't understand rigging very well and it was a problem because you need to be able to make a character in the future, and if you don't know rigging, it's going to cause all these issues. So you've got then a list of things to focus on. So then you can go and watch some rigging tutorials or some lighting tutorials if that's the area that you need to focus on, and rewatch them, right? Like rewatch my lighting tutorial series, for example. That's all the theory and understanding what lighting does to the shot. And refamiliarize yourself with the content, because I do this myself. Forget what was in a tutorial. Forget what the original lesson was. I mentioned it in my 7 Habits of Effective Artists speech that one of the problems I had when I was learning to draw was I watched all these tutorials. I read these books on how to draw a face and whatever else and a head. And then I was doing it and I noticed I wasn't getting any better. And then I went back and I rewatched some of the material and I had misremembered one of the measurements. And so I was drawing the heads like way wider than they needed to be. And all the measurements were screwed up because of that one thing. And it was simply, I just forgot. I mean, I didn't forget. I probably didn't record it in my head correctly in the first place. So, yeah, you do it all the time. You watch the thing and you go, I got it. Because when you do it, when you're watching the tutorial, you're mimicking what the person is doing. And so you feel more confident than you actually should be. And then when you go and rewatch it, you go like, oh, I forgot all about that. And oh, I rushed through that section and I didn't stop there. And I completely glossed over the rendering or the compositing or all these steps that I had forgotten because, hey, our memories can only be as good as our brain, right? And humans' brains aren't very good at remembering things. So, So you'll then have learned a bunch of that stuff, and then you want to focus and do an exercise specifically on something like lighting. Okay, so you want to take one of your old models and try and light it 10 different ways. Okay, and this sounds like a waste of time. Like, okay, the object is to finish a piece, so why am I lighting it 10 times? Well, the exercise is lighting. Okay, so you're forcing yourself to come up with 10 different ways to light this character. Well, you'll learn a lot. You'll see, like, I light it this way and I do this background and pull the camera in like this or whatever. It creates this sort of look. When I pull it back and I change the lighting and do the opposite, it creates a sort of darker look. And you're forced to come up with different variations. You learn a lot through the process. That's what an exercise is. It's not creating a finished piece. It's purely for you. And yes, it doesn't have the same satisfaction of being able to post something cool on Instagram and getting a bunch of likes that don't matter. But it is working towards your future. It is building up. It's strengthening your muscles, and it's definitely what I would recommend that you do, Ethan. But that is a very good question, man. Like, I hope I didn't sound too dismissive, because I think, as you said, it is completely in line with how most artists feel. They feel stuck and like, I'm not improving, and I don't know why. And I've done all the right things. I've moved up in sort of difficulty. But yeah, it's I think a lot of self-learning really comes down to how often you pause and reflect and really analyze what it is that you've learned. Look at your progress and go, am I improving? What are the areas that I am weak in? Because most artists, probably 99 out of 100, do not do this. So if you do it, you will start improving far faster than anyone else. Hope that helps you, Ethan.